Oh my God. What am I hearing? That's his voice. No, this can't be real.
I stood outside room 402 of the most expensive hotel in Lagos, holding a "I love you" balloon and wearing the dress he loved most. My heart was dancing. I had flown in from Abuja just to surprise Tunde. He told me this was a strictly boys' weekend. No wives, no girlfriends, just business and bonding. But as I walked through the lobby, I saw them. All of Tunde's friends, Segan, Chitty, and Kunnel, were sitting by the pool. But they weren't alone. They were laughing and drinking with their wives. My heart dropped. Why was I the only partner left at home? I hurried to Tunde's private suite, my hands shaking. I didn't knock. I wanted to jump into his arms. But as I reached the door, I froze. From inside the room, I heard the unmistakable sounds of passion. I heard a woman's voice crying out in pleasure, and then I heard Tunde. "I've wanted this all weekend," he groaned. "It's so much better without her here." The balloon slipped from my hand and floated toward the ceiling. My world didn't just crack, it shattered. Before we continue this heartbreaking journey, I want to know who is watching. Where are you watching this story from? Drop your country or city in the comments. My name is Amara. I grew up in a small village where we had more love than money. My mother always taught me, "Amara, kindness is a seed. If you plant it, you will never go hungry." I carried that lesson with me all the way to the big city of Lagos. I met Tunde at a charity gala where I was working as a waitress. He was handsome, powerful, and a billionaire. He was the CEO of a massive tech company. When he looked at me, I felt like the only girl in the world. "You have a heart of gold," he told me on our first date. He loved that I volunteered at orphanages and spent my little salary buying bread for the homeless. Soon, he proposed with a diamond ring that cost more than my village's school. I thought I was living a fairy tale. Tunde was my hero. He was always generous, or so I thought. He would buy me bags and shoes, but he always seemed to want me to stay away from his business world. "It's too stressful for you, my queen," he would say. "Just stay home and be beautiful." 3 days ago, Tunde packed his bags. "Amara, the guys and I are going to a private resort. It's a high-stakes meeting. No distractions. I'll call you when I can," he said, kissing my forehead. I felt a bit lonely, but I understood. To be a billionaire's wife, you have to be patient. That evening, I went to the local market. I saw an old woman struggling to carry a heavy crate of tomatoes. Even though I was dressed in expensive silk, I rolled up my sleeves and helped her carry it for 3 blocks. "God bless you, daughter," the woman said. "Your beauty is on the outside, but your spirit is even brighter. Always trust your gut." Her words stuck with me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I felt a strange pulling in my chest. Something told me Tunde needed me. I thought, what if I surprise him? He's working so hard. I'll bring his favorite home-cooked meal and show him how much I care. I spent the whole morning cooking egusi soup and pounded yam. I booked a flight. I was so excited. I imagined him opening the door, seeing me, and telling me I was the best thing that ever happened to him. But now, standing in this hallway, the smell of my home-cooked food felt like a joke. The sounds behind the door continued. I reached for the handle, my fingers trembling. I pushed the door open, ready to confront the man I loved and the woman who had taken my place. But when the door swung wide, what I saw wasn't just a woman in his bed. It was someone I recognized, someone who should have been my best friend. The woman sitting on the edge of the bed, adjusting her robe, was Sola. Sola was my bridesmaid-to-be. She was the one who helped me pick out my wedding dress. Tunde was standing by the window, shirtless. He turned around, his face turning pale, a ghostly white that looked strange on his dark skin. "Amara," he whispered. His voice wasn't filled with love anymore. It was filled with fear. "Is this the guy's trip?" I asked. My voice was surprisingly calm, the kind of calm that comes right before a storm. "Is Sola one of the guys now?" Sola didn't even look ashamed. She smirked and crossed her legs. "Amara, you are always too soft for this world. Tunde needs a woman who understands power, not someone who spends her weekends feeding stray dogs." Tunde stepped forward. "Amara, let me explain. It's not what it looks like." "I heard you, Tunde," I said, tears finally blurring my vision. "I heard you say it's better without me." I didn't scream. I didn't throw the soup. I simply took off the diamond ring and placed it on the table by the door. "You're right, Sola. I am soft. But my mother taught me that gold is tested by fire. Thank you for showing me the fire." I turned and walked out. I walked past the pool where the other wives looked at me with pity. They knew. They had all known. I was the only one kept in the dark because I was the kind girl who wouldn't understand their lifestyle. I checked into a small, cheap motel near the airport. I couldn't go back to our mansion. I cried until I had no tears left. The next morning, I went to a small cafe to get coffee. I had only a few naira in my pocket. As I sat there, I saw a young man crying at the next table. He looked exhausted. He had a stack of medical papers in front of him. Despite my own heart being in pieces, I remembered my mother's voice. Kindness is a seed. I walked over. Excuse me, are you okay? The man looked up. My daughter needs surgery, but I am short by 500,000 naira. The hospital won't admit her. Without thinking, I reached into my purse. I had a gold bracelet Tunde had given me for my birthday. It was worth much more than 500,000. I handed it to him. Take this. Sell it at the jeweler down the street. Save your daughter, I said. He gasped. I can't take this from a stranger. Please, I said. I'm realizing that expensive things don't bring happiness. Helping people does. He thanked me 1,000 times and ran off. I felt a tiny spark of light in my dark heart. I decided right then that I didn't need a billionaire to be someone. I was Amara, and I was enough. I sat in the corner of the dusty cafe, watching the man I'd helped run toward the jeweler. I felt lighter, but I was still a woman with no home and a broken heart. That was a very expensive gesture for a stranger. A deep, calm voice said from the table behind me. I turned. Sitting there was a man who looked like he'd been carved out of obsidian. He wasn't flashy like Tunde. He wore a simple black suit, but the watch on his wrist whispered power louder than Tunde ever could. I recognized him instantly from the news. David Adeyemi. He was the CEO of Nexus Global, Tunde's biggest rival. They had been at war for years over a government tech contract. Kindness doesn't have a price tag, I said, wiping a stray tear. David leaned forward, his eyes searching mine. In this city, everything has a price. But I've watched you for 10 minutes. You gave away a fortune to save a child you don't know, while your fiancé is probably spending his morning trying to figure out how to fix his image. How do you? I know Tunde, David interrupted softly, and I know he doesn't deserve a woman who carries the sun in her spirit. Over the next hour, David didn't talk about business. He asked about my mother, my village, and my dreams. For the first time in years, someone wasn't looking at me as a trophy, but as a person. I felt a strange, magnetic pull. He wasn't just handsome. He was present. My phone suddenly erupted. 15 missed calls. 20 messages. All from Tunde. Amara, please. Sola was a mistake. She seduced me. I was drunk. Come outside, please. I can't lose you. I looked out the window. Tunde's convoy of black SUVs was pulling up to the curb of this tiny, cheap cafe. He stepped out, looking disheveled, clutching a bouquet of lilies, my favorite. But as he marched toward the door, he stopped dead. He saw me through the glass, sitting with David Adeyemi. The door swung open. Amara, get away from him, Tunde roared, his face contorted with rage. Are you trying to spite me? You're coming home right now. I stood up, but I didn't move toward him. David stood up too, stepping slightly in front of me. The height difference was intimidating. She isn't a piece of property, Tunde, David said coolly. And from what I heard, you already traded her in for a model who understands power. This is none of your business, Adeyemi. Tunde screamed. Suddenly, a second car screeched to a halt. Sola stepped out, her eyes red with fury. She didn't look at me. She glared at Tunde. You're begging her? Sola hissed, loud enough for the whole cafe to hear. I gave you everything this weekend. I'm the one who helps you close deals, Tunde. You said she was just a charity case. You were tired of carrying. The silence that followed was deafening. Tunde looked from Sola to me, his face filled with a desperate, pathetic regret. I looked at David, then at the man who had broken my heart. I'm not a charity case, Tunde, and I'm certainly not yours anymore. I turned to David. Is your offer for that lunch still open? David smiled, a genuine, warm expression that didn't reach his business photos. Always. The lunch with David was unlike any I'd ever had with Tunde. We didn't go to a Michelin star restaurant. Instead, David took me to a vibrant, bustling local eatery known for its authentic Nigerian cuisine. He listened more than he spoke, asking insightful questions about my charity work, my passion for helping others, and even my thoughts on social impact and business. It was a revelation. Amara, David began, setting down his fork. I've been looking for someone with your unique perspective. Someone with genuine empathy, but also a sharp mind. Nexus Global is launching a new initiative, Tech for Good, focused on using our resources to uplift underserved communities. We need a director who truly understands grassroots needs, not just boardroom metrics. My heart pounded. Are you offering me a job, Mr. Adeyemi? He chuckled softly. Please, call me David. And yes, Amara, I am. Your experience with volunteering, your innate ability to connect with people, it's exactly what this project needs. Think about it. It's an opportunity to build something impactful, something that aligns with your core values. The offer was staggering. It wasn't just a job. It was a chance to build a life on my own terms, doing something I truly believed in, far from ton shadow. It was an escape and an empowerment all rolled into one. I felt a surge of hope I hadn't known since finding Tunde in that hotel room. I'd be honored, David, I said, a genuine smile finally reaching my eyes. Thank you. His smile in return was radiant. The honor is all ours, Amara. Welcome to Nexus Global. Meanwhile, Tunde was spiraling. He called me incessantly, leaving voicemails that swung between desperate pleas and bitter accusations. Amara, please. You can't do this to me. You're humiliating me in front of Lagos. David is my enemy. This is all because of Sola. She's poison. Come back. I'll give you anything you want, darling. He even showed up at the small motel I was staying in, flowers in hand, only to be politely but firmly turned away by the staff. The image of the powerful Tunde Legbe, reduced to begging outside a 2-star motel, spread through the city's elite faster than wildfire. His ego was taking a beating, and it was glorious to witness. Sola, however, was not one to fade quietly into the background. Enraged by Tunde's public rejection and his relentless pursuit of me, she felt like a discarded pawn. She saw my blossoming connection with David as the ultimate betrayal, a direct challenge to her own aspirations for power and wealth. Late that evening, after hearing rumors of my meeting with David, Sola sat in her own opulent apartment, swirling a glass of expensive champagne. Her mind, sharp and ruthless, began to formulate a plan. So, the little charity worker thinks she can play with the big boys now. Does she? She muttered, a cruel smile twisting her lips. And Tunde, the fool, running after her like a lost puppy. He needs to be taught a lesson, and Amara needs to be reminded of her place. She picked up her phone, scrolling through her contacts until she found the number of a prominent social blogger known for her malicious gossip and sensational headlines. Hello, darling, Sola purred into the phone. I have a story for you. A very interesting story about Amara and her sudden rise in society. It involves a jilted billionaire, his arch-rival, and a rather scandalous past. Sola began to weave a narrative designed to destroy my reputation, painting me as a gold digger who had manipulated Tunde and was now moving on to his richer rival. She knew exactly which lies to tell and how to twist the truth just enough to make it believable to a scandal-hungry public. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about ensuring that Amara, the kind girl, would never truly belong in their world. The morning began with a vibration that didn't stop. My phone was blowing up. Headlines from Lagos Scoop and the Elite Tea were splashed across every social media platform. From orphanages to billionaire battles. Is Amara the ultimate social climber? Sources say she played Tunde and David against each other for a Nexus Global seat. The article was venomous. It claimed I had staged the breakup to jump to a richer man and that my charity work was a PR stunt to lure in Tunde. For an hour, the internet was a shark tank. I sat in my motel room, my heart sinking. Was Sola actually going to win? But then, something incredible happened. The internet began to fight back. It started with a single comment under the viral post. It was from a man at the cafe, the one I gave my gold bracelet to, at Chitty_J. This is a lie. This woman saved my daughter's life yesterday in a random cafe. She gave me her gold so my child could breathe. She's a saint. Then, the woman from the market posted, at Mama Tomato, I saw this girl. She helped me carry my crates for blocks in the sun while wearing silk. A social climber doesn't ruin her expensive clothes to help an old woman with tomatoes. Leave her alone. Within hours, The loopholes in Sola's story were gaping wide. People pointed out that the photos Sola leaked were cropped to hide the fact that she was the one in the hotel room with Tunde. A tech-savvy teenager even traced the IP address of the anonymous source directly to Sola's private residence. The hashtag Justice for Amara began a trend, followed closely by a much darker one. Hashtag Arrest Sola. By that evening, the public's pity for Tunde had turned into disgust, and their annoyance with Sola had turned into a demand for justice. I was at the Nexus Global headquarters, standing in David's glass office. He was looking at a tablet, a smirk playing on his lips. She overplayed her hand, David said, turning the screen toward me. The public doesn't just want her canceled, Amara. They want her held accountable. My legal team has already drafted a defamation suit. If you sign this, we can take her to court for every kobo she has. Just then, the office door burst open. Tunde was there, looking like a man who hadn't slept in 48 hours. But he wasn't alone. Sola was clinging to his arm, looking terrified. Amara, please. Sola cried, her voice high and shrill. Tell him to stop. People are outside my apartment, throwing eggs. They're calling for the police. I was hurt that Tunde chose you. Tunde pushed her hand off his arm. Don't Tunde me. You ruined my reputation along with hers. Amara, I'll fix everything if you just come back to me. Look at what a mess this is. I looked at Tunde, then at the trembling Sola, and finally at David, who stood silently by my side, offering me the strength to make my own choice. Sola, I said, my voice steady. You said I was too soft for this world. But you forgot that the softest ground is where the deepest roots grow. You didn't just lie about me. You tried to destroy the work I do for people who have nothing. I picked up the pen from David's desk. I'm not going back to you, Tunde. And Sola, you're going to learn that in the real world, actions have consequences. I signed the paper. 6 months later, the Lagos skyline glowed under a purple sunset. I stood on the balcony of the Nexus Global headquarters, looking out at the city that once tried to break me. Below, the Tech for Good Center was buzzing. We had already funded 3 rural schools and a mobile clinic. My mother's seed of kindness hadn't just grown, it had become a forest. A heavy, familiar silence fell behind me. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. Amara, Tunde said, his voice stripped of its usual bravado. He looked older. The billionaire playboy title had soured. His investors had pulled out after the scandal, and his company was struggling. I bought your mother's village a new transformer. I cleared the community's debt. Please, just one dinner. Let me show you I've changed. I turned, looking at the man I once thought was my hero. I felt no anger, only a quiet pity. Tunde, you're still trying to buy a heart that isn't for sale, I said softly. You didn't help my village because you care. You did it to check a box. I don't forgive you for what you did, and I don't owe you my future because of your guilt. Please don't come back. As he walked away, his head bowed, I felt the last chord of my old life snap. Sola was gone, too, serving a community service sentence and blacklisted from every social circle in Nigeria. She had wanted power. Now, she was learning the humility of the soft world she once mocked. Is he finally gone? David stepped onto the balcony, 2 glasses of fresh juice in his hands. He didn't come with diamonds or loud promises. He came with peace. He's gone, I whispered. David set the glasses down and took my hands in his. In the months we'd worked together, he had treated me with a reverence I didn't know existed. He didn't tell me to stay home and be beautiful. He sat in the dirt with me at the orphanages. He listened to my ideas as equals. He treated me like a princess, not because I was a trophy, but because he saw the soul beneath the silk. Good, David said, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my heart skip. Because I've been waiting all day to take my director of impact out to celebrate. Celebrate what? I asked, smiling. Us, he whispered. He reached into his pocket, but he didn't pull out a ring to bind me. He pulled out a small, hand-carved wooden pendant from my home village. I tracked down the craftsman who taught your mother. I wanted you to have a piece of home that Tunde's money couldn't touch. As he leaned in and kissed my forehead, I realized that my mother was right. Kindness is a seed. I had planted it in the shadows of betrayal, and it had bloomed into a love that was stronger than gold. I was no longer the girl waiting outside a hotel room with a balloon. I was Amara, loved, empowered, and finally home. The end. I hope you enjoyed this roller coaster of story. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Also, what would you do if you were in Amara's shoes and saw your fiancé sleeping with your best friend?